Where is Harmony Montgomery? This 5-year-old angel disappeared in 2019, but no one reported her missing or even looked for her for 2 years. She's never been found. So how could a child just vanish and no one says anything? The answer came out during the trial of her father, Adam Montgomery, who had sole custody and beat her to death and discarded her remains. Today was sentencing day, and prosecutors gave Adam Montgomery one more chance to reveal Harmony's location so she could be laid to rest.
Right now, Your Honor, if he tells us where we can recover her and we do so within the next 7 days, we will change our recommendation to 35 years.
Harmony's mother, who lost custody during a controversial court hearing, was in court today and was able to speak to her daughter's killer and give him something to think about.
To the monster who murdered my baby, I did not kill my daughter, and I look forward to trial to refute those offensive claims. That is all you have said about my sweet daughter's life. Another lie, like all the other ones you've told.
In Boise, Idaho, Lori Daybell murdered her 2 children. She conspired to have her current husband's first wife murdered. Now, that husband, Chad Daybell, is on trial for those 3 murders, and he's facing the death penalty. Today, the jury saw important body cam video of Lori and Chad in Hawaii after the murders, hanging out by the pool.
He's about leaving, sir. Do you have any questions regarding that?
And what story does the DNA tell in this case? Tonight, we take a closer look.
Now, on the 18 tools that you tested, how many of those had Mr. Daybell's DNA on them?
None of the stains or material I tested had Chad Daybell's DNA.
Get ready. This hour of closing arguments starts right now. I'm Vinnie Politan. Thank you for joining us tonight here on Closing Arguments. It was about 2.5 years ago, the first time I uttered these words, these 3 words. Where is Harmony? Harmony Montgomery, a little girl who was missing for 2 years. Nobody said anything. Then finally, something happened. Finally, someone was looking for her. The problem is, 2.5 years later tonight, we have the same question, because Harmony Montgomery has not been found. And that is part of this story that will continue, because this little girl is not resting in peace. This little girl has not been laid to rest. But what we do know is that her killer is locked up. Her killer is convicted. That's him right there with the teardrop tattoo on his eye. Her father, Adam Montgomery. So where is Harmony? It's a question everyone wants answered. It's the only thing that matters right now. And today, when Adam Montgomery is being sentenced for that brutal murder, the prosecutor gave him one more chance.
Your Honor, as you know, the defendant has been found guilty of beating Harmony Montgomery in July of 2019, guilty of murdering Harmony Montgomery, a child under the age of 13, and then transporting and hiding and abusing her body and compacting her into smaller and smaller bags and ultimately disposing of her on March of 2020, and tampering with witnesses afterwards to ensure that this horror story that we heard at trial stayed silent. Under our law, after the second-degree assault, after what he did to her and the other crimes to hide other acts to hide his crimes, under our law in New Hampshire, that means that the mandatory minimum sentence that the defendant must receive for second-degree murder of a child under 13 is at least 35 years in prison. So the question for us today isn't why the defendant should get the minimum mandatory sentence. The question is, how can the minimum sentence ever apply to the crimes that were committed by this man? How can the minimum ever apply when he beat Harmony the night before and the morning of, and time again as he drove from the methadone clinic to Burger King, and he beat her to death and then covered her up to suffer and die in the car while he ate his food. The state's position is, how can the minimum ever apply when this court recognized at the last sentencing hearing that he had 15 years of convictions for, quote, some of the most violent and egregious criminal behavior, end quote, that this court had ever seen? How can the minimum ever apply when he's lied over and over again that he didn't kill his daughter and that she was safe somewhere when he was first asked by many different people? How can the minimums ever apply when he conceded at trial the crimes that involved the horrors that he inflicted upon her body from December 7th on forward, up and until March, when he dumped her from the U-Haul that he had conned others into renting for him? How can the minimum ever apply when he's had opportunity after opportunity after opportunity to tell investigators and others where she is right now, and she can't be laid to rest? There is nothing minimal about the crimes that he's being convicted for today. The state is not going to restate everything that's put forth in the state's sentencing memorandum word for word. The state's recommendation at this time is that the defendant serve 4 to 8 years, stand committed for the crime of second-degree assault, which occurred in July of 2019, and that should then be followed by consecutive sentences of 3.5 to 7 years for his falsifying physical evidence, for what he did to Harmony's body, with a concurrent sentence of 12 months for the abuse of corpse misdemeanor, followed by another consecutive 3.5 to 7 years for witness tampering, for beating his spouse to ensure that she would stick to the story he created, followed by not less than a minimum of 45 years to life from the charge of second-degree murder. The state recognizes that this is just a recommendation. The decision today lies with the court, regardless of what the state says. But that's the state's recommendation today. However, Your Honor, if the defendant will right now tell us where he hid her body, sufficient for us to find her, if he'll tell us right now where he put that CMC bag so that her family and the Manchester Police Department can recover her remains in the next 7 days, then the state would amend its recommendation to a minimum of 35 years to life and let the second-degree assault, falsifying physical evidence, abuse of a course, and witness tampering sentences be served concurrent. But right now, Your Honor, if he tells us where we can recover her and we do so within the next 7 days, we will change our recommendation to 35 years. Since that offer has been rejected, Your Honor, that is yet another reason why the minimum should not apply. What I just said was not a stunt. It was not a theatrical event. I stated in closing arguments that there are moments in life where we are tested, where our failure or our success lies in whether we do the right thing at that moment in time. And time again, and about 30 seconds ago, the defendant chose again to be heartless and immoral and selfish and unapologetic, which for the purposes of you deciding his punishment and rehabilitation and his deterrence and coming up with the right sentence for him means that he has just yet shown you again in this courtroom, and for anybody else, that he is heartless, immoral, selfish, and an unapologetic murderer of his own child.
Powerful moment. Powerful moment inside that courtroom. He's given the opportunity right there, completely silent, doesn't even bat an eye at that moment. So he's not saying where this child is, his own child, what he did with her. So now it's going to be up to the public to find her. And she is in this bag. Take a look, folks. It's a CMC bag. This is what you're looking for. Anyone in that area, anyone, the CMC bag is where the remains were placed and discarded. He won't say. Well, let's take a listen to what his attorney had to say.
You can imagine, anybody can, that somebody walking into a sentencing hearing for something where he maintains his innocence that he did not do would be a difficult situation. That person would be assisted by his counsel, who would understand that being vilified for something that you didn't do would be difficult. Just as it is unconstitutional to increase a defendant's punishment because he refuses to admit guilt, so too is it unconstitutional for a court to draw an adverse inference of lack of remorse from a defendant's silence at sentencing. Adam Montgomery did not kill his daughter, but when he discovered his daughter's death, he broke, and he did inexplicable things. Even he can't explain his actions. But eventually he pulled it together, and he was able to say goodbye to his daughter. And that's what he did.
He is conceding the fact that he disposed of his daughter's remains. That's not in contention. So there's nothing, by him saying where he put her, has nothing to do with his claims of innocence to the murder, because he's admitting that he got rid of her body. It's a ridiculous argument being made there at the end. Trying to give him some benefit. Like, oh, he's maintaining his... No, he's not maintaining his innocence for getting rid of the body. They conceded that. They conceded that. Okay, now, I'm sure that got you angry, right? That whole situation. There's probably more here that might get you angry. Kayla Montgomery, speaking through a letter that she wrote that's going to be read by a victim advocate, speaking with a victim impact statement. Kayla Montgomery, the one who didn't cooperate and didn't talk until she got caught to save herself, did nothing to save the child, right? Let's take a listen to her letter as read by a victim witness coordinator.
Goodbye. I wanted to write a letter to you because it's the only way to tell you how I feel. I don't know about you, but I need some kind of closure. I will forever have a place in my heart for you, whether you believe me or not. You were my best friend, my husband, the person I chose to spend the rest of my life with. You are the father of our children we have together, and I'm forever grateful for having them. In the year 2019, we were losing everything. My job, our place to live, and after living in a car for a few weeks, we lost that. At the same time, Harmony dies because of your anger and hitting her so many times. We didn't even know she passed away until the car died, and we had to take our kids out of the car. She didn't respond. She was lifeless. During those years of having to keep quiet, you started physically and mentally abusing me, accusing me of cheating on you, telling on you, and trying to kill you. You caused so much hurt and pain, I don't even know why I still care about you and actually feel bad for you. Oh, maybe it's because I'm not a cold, heartless person and still have some care about you. I was in love with you once. Now I still love you because you're the father of our children. This is goodbye for now. Maybe I'll see you at the future in some point. Goodbye, Adam.
Are you kidding me? That's a victim impact statement? Are you kidding me? It's a love letter to Adam Montgomery. This is insanity. By the way, let's not forget one huge fact here. After she witnesses Adam Montgomery murder his daughter Harmony in the car that they're living in, she decides shortly thereafter to have another baby with him. Let that sink in for a second. Moving on. If you noticed, while that letter was being written, Harmony's mom, Crystal Sorey, walked out of the courtroom. Well, she had a moment and an opportunity today to give a victim impact statement. Let's take a look.
To the monster who murdered my baby. I did not kill my daughter, and I look forward to trial to refute those offensive claims. That is all you have said about my sweet daughter's life. Another lie, like all the other ones you've told. Like the cover story you told, that you dropped her off with me, knowing full well and good if you had, she would be thriving right now. Not beaten and stuffed in a CMC bag where you put her. She had a life worth living, unlike your own. And it bothered you to your core that she was nothing like you and everything like me. Beautiful inside and out, funny, smart, sassy, loving, and most of all, kind. She wasn't a coward like you, and I'll be forever grateful for that. You're a coward who has to be in control of everything and everyone around you, insecure and paranoid. The list goes on. She is none of those things. She lit up a room when she walked in. She made a mark wherever she went, and you couldn't stand it. She was an incredible big sister. She loved her brother, Jameson, to her core, and I know she loved your sons too, no matter the picture you tried to paint of her. December 7th will forever be the darkest day of my life. The night you beat her to death, I woke up in the middle of the night in agonizing pain, from my head to my toes, and I felt like I was dying, not knowing, in the most brutal way, a part of me was dying. Suffering in that back seat for 20 minutes while you and your wife fed yourselves and your other children, and you got high. 20 minutes that you could have used to save her life. Did she cry for me? Did she scream? Did she beg you to stop? I'll never know. Because like I said, you're too much of a coward to tell the truth and do one good thing for Harmony. You may have taken her physically from me, but she is always, always with me. And I will forever look for her until the end of my days. But I hope that every day and every night you're on this earth, you hear nothing but my baby's giggle. I doubt you ever heard it in this life. All she knew with you was misery and fear. I hope you hear her sweet voice telling you to stop hitting her over and over, or how she looked the very last time you saw her, broken and bruised. You were supposed to protect her, yet you did the opposite. Harmony wasn't anything to you but property that you could throw away when she was more of a burden to you than a meal ticket. Your hatred for me led you to act on your monstrous, controlling ways, and you took her because you just could not let her come home where she belongs. My love for Harmony outweighs my hatred for you, but they both gave me the strength to listen to my instincts and to help the police put you away forever. Harmony will live on through me, and you can't do anything about it. You can't do anything to stop it. I wish you nothing but pain and misery for the rest of your pathetic life, and with or without you, we will find my daughter. I always knew you weren't a good person, which is why I left you. I just never knew to what extent, but now I know you're just plain evil.
There are more victims. Harmony has a brother who was adopted by two amazing parents who had an opportunity to speak on behalf of their son.
When we first adopted Jameson, he would always tell us about Harmony. He would tell us about her beautiful blonde hair. He would tell us about her glasses. He still does. He would tell us about her bright blue eyes. He would tell us about her wonderful smile that lit up a room. He would tell us that she was there to help him. Jameson has constantly asked us, where's Harmony? Recently, he once was struggling to go to bed. He looked off into the shadows of his closet and said, is that Harmony there, looking back at me? These are no questions for a little boy to be asking. He no longer can hold on to that hope. Since learning about the death of innocent and beautiful Harmony, Jameson has suffered. Just a few weeks ago in school, his teacher asked him to draw a picture of his family. He drew a picture of his two dogs, his two brothers, his two dads, but then he put a heart above all of us, and inside that heart was the letter H. He said that was Harmony looking down on us. Jameson constantly asks us, who took my sister away? Adam, you took away his best friend, his sister. You introduced murder into his life and forever created a void that can never be filled.
Before Jameson knew of Harmony's tragic fate, he would go to the door when the doorbell rung, and he would say, maybe she's found me. He would search a park, he would look at school, and if there was any girl that had blonde hair and glasses, he would go up to them and say, are you Harmony? I'll never forget the day that we told Jameson that Harmony was in heaven. He's a very active kid, and that day he just stopped and he held us and he said, no, I need my big sister. Why? Why did this happen? These are questions that Jameson has had and continues to ask. Daddy and Dada, what happened to my sister? Why did she die? Why would anyone hurt her? How about her glasses? Were they okay? In her family, we really believe in love and forgiveness. I'm just not sure how to teach her son how to forgive the monster that murdered his sister.
Where's Harmony? We'll be back. On the next episode of Accomplice to Murder.
What he found was a dead man and no sign of the two sons.
One of Florida's most notorious murders.
They were now claiming that their confessions were fabricated, that in fact it was Ricky Chavez who committed the murder.
His real interest was in molesting Alex.
Did you at some point believe that you were in love with Ricky Chavez?
Yes, sir.
Accomplice to Murder with Vinnie Politan. All new episode, Sunday night, 8/7 Central.
Only on Court TV.
Today is truly about Harmony, I would say, and I think you've heard that from all of the different victims' family members from here and from afar who were able to come forward and provide their statement to the court. The presentation that the state made obviously was trying to make sure the court found a good balance between punishment, deterrent, and rehabilitation. She certainly agreed with what the state's recommendation was, and that is what she has imposed. 2 weeks ago was the last time that Manchester went out for another search that was done in a different area, similar to the same locations that we've talked about before. Unfortunately, they were not fruitful at the time.
So with this conviction and prior convictions, apparently it looks like Adam Montgomery eligible for parole when he's 118 years old. So we'll see how that works out for him. Let's bring in our think tank tonight. Joining us, criminal defense attorney Eklund Mercy, also with us. Criminal defense attorney and the attorney who represented in a big case that I covered. Kirk Nurmi is with us, and president of the West Coast Trial Lawyers and former federal prosecutor Nima Rahmani. Great to see everyone tonight. Eklund, what did you think about the sentencing and giving the defendant, who was conceded that he's the one that disposed of the remains, didn't admit to the murder, but conceded that he disposed of the remains, giving him the opportunity at sentencing to just say where she is?
They didn't give him enough. Unfortunately, as a criminal defense attorney, I think that he already has a number in which he would be willing to do it. And the fact that they went 35, which was the bare minimum.
That was just a recommendation. Judge could have given less if he's, accepting some level of responsibility, but he didn't. He just sat there and did nothing.
Exactly, but there's no incentive to. If you're just telling me the only incentive for a criminal defendant who we know had a drug problem at that time, who has shown narcissistic behavior, and you're telling him that the only reason to provide this information is to provide peace to the family, in which he didn't want to provide peace while Harmony was alive, is unreasonable. I think that they had an opportunity. This wasn't the first time he got this recommendation. In order, it's not fair to give him the 35 years of the day of. I think that the prosecution was just going to say, hey, one more time. But I think that it also opened the door for the for the defense in the sense that, hey, you still need information from me.
Yeah, oh, they do. They do. I mean, the search is continuing.
I mean, that could be appealable. You know, these are appealable things. So I'm thinking that he's playing the long game, and I'm thinking that if the prosecutor really wanted to know that information, I think 35 wasn't the year that was going to give him that.
Well, 118 years old, so he's definitely playing the long game. Kirk Nurmi, what did you think of what happened inside that courtroom today?
Well, you know, Vinny, this is why I'm glad I'm not practicing law anymore. It's the people like Adam Montgomery and having to sit next to guys like that. I've done that. I've been through those sentences. They're heart-wrenching. And, you know, you feel for the victims and all their loved ones, but there's nothing you can do other than sit there and represent your client. And I would take a little different tact with what Eklund did. I think, you know, even though he's admitted to doing all these, disposing the body, what have you, there is just a psychological barrier with a lot of these defendants, whether it's narcissism, what have you. They are just going to live with whatever mental gymnastics they can to impose a denial, because he's going to spend the rest of his life behind bars unless he lives to 119, Vinny, and he is going to use that denial to blame the judge, blame his attorneys, whoever else he can blame, so he can kind of, quote, live with himself for those 118 years, what have you. So, you know, it's a real tough position. It's a tough day for everyone, and I'm just glad at the end of the day that Adam Montgomery is never going to see the light of day. Well, the search is continuing. As the prosecutor said, they made another attempt 2 weeks ago. Crystal Sorey is going to be leading some groups out there as well. Nima, your thoughts about what happened today inside that courtroom?
Well, Adam Montgomery was in prison when Harmony was born, and he's going to die in prison, you know, and I think that a 21-year reduction, even a recommendation, is a significant motive for someone that has any reason or common sense or logic whatsoever. But you're talking about someone that didn't even show up to his own trial, right? Day one of jury selection, that was it. So he was essentially tried in absentia. Here's someone that has had a long, violent history, was already doing significant time when you know, he was arrested ultimately for Harmony's murder. So you can't reason with people like this. There's a special place in hell for them. I said that just a couple days ago on Court TV. We're covering the Christopher Gregor case, someone else who killed their own child. Really, it's the worst of the worst, and really they should spend the rest of their life in prison. All right, Eklund, I have to ask you about something else. Kayla Montgomery, his former wife, who was the stepmother, who did nothing, said nothing until she got caught and cornered. What did you think of her love letter victim impact statement in the courtroom? That was bizarre.
Oh, it's so normal. I call it jail love, and jail love is it spans all types of counties, all types of charges. She is still going to ride for him, even while, you know, you can tell by the letters, she still wanted the relationship. Even being sober, she still wants the relationship with this man. So there's no, she's gone to the sunken place. There's no saving her. But unfortunately, this is a normal thing with criminal cases and co-defendants that are married. It happens so often. It's really sad, but this jail love happens often.
The murder of a little girl, Kirk, and then decides to have another child with the man who just murdered his daughter. And now she's, you know, a victim impact love letter at sentencing. This is some, this is a different world I don't understand.
It's a repulsive act, isn't it, Vinny, to sit there and give a victim's advocate this letter, this love letter to your husband, the father of your children, knowing what he did, and like you said, having a child with him after witnessing what she did. So, yeah, it's completely repulsive. We don't know whether it's mental health that motivated the drug use or the drug use fried her brain, but either way, you know, in the end, ultimately, it doesn't mean much because Mr. Montgomery's going to be behind bars for the rest of his life.
Yeah, Nima, as we look back on the trial, a lot of folks were very concerned about the deal that Kayla Montgomery got. But looking at the evidence and everything that happened here, it seems like you really needed her testimony. You needed her to finally say what happened, to fill in these large gaps in the story and the tragic death of Harmony.
Vinny, you did, and I don't like cutting deals with folks that were present during a murder and who helped dispose of the body. She's an accessory after the fact, but like you said, Vinny, and when we needed her testimony, we being the prosecution, I always come from the prosecution perspective, and you know, unfortunately, because the state charged that witness intimidation, she is a victim in the case. She has a right to speak. Obviously, I was horrified and offended, just like you were. But you know, it's this tragedy potentially could have been avoided if Harmony wasn't taken from her mother in the first place. I know there was her biological mother. I know there was some drug use and that issue there, and that's a whole nother situation why you would take a child with special needs. Let's not forget she was born blind in one eye from a mother just because of some drug use, placing her in the hands of her violent father simply because at least there was no evidence that he was using drugs at the time. Huge mistake by the judge in the case, and people are outraged, justifiably so.
Yeah, I can't imagine being in the courtroom and saying it's in the best interest of the child to give full care and custody of this child with some special needs to the guy with the teardrop tattoo who's going to head out of state. Like right after this hearing, he's going to put her in the car and head out of the state. Unbelievable, but failure on many parts. But the search continues as the question is still 1,000% relevant, unfortunately. Where is Harmony? Think Tank is staying with us. When we come back, we're going to talk about